Dr. Ali, the question I wanted to ask you had to do with the you called it a multi-pronged approach or strategy. If there are people out there that you've called out to the philanthropists and all of that, if they wanted to come in and be a part of what is on ground, what strategy do you have on ground now that anyone who wants to be part of can latch onto and say, okay, this is what I'm doing? The legislators you're asking to come in here to sponsor to sponsor clinics, is there a format that's already laid out, or do they have to come up with their own strategy to hook up with what you have?
So looking at the private sector, for instance, we already have a platform through the Nigeria Business Community Against AIDS. We've been working with them to set up a HIV trust fund, which hopefully we will launch sometime next year. And the trust fund will be driven by the private sector. It will have money coming in mostly from the CSR, corporate social responsibility funds, and it will collate this money, and the money will be used to invest in buying commodities such as HIV test kits, antiretrovirals, laboratory reagents for monitoring HIV. Because remember, most of these facilities that are currently providing HIV services, they're already there physically on the ground. The infrastructure is already there. Governments are already paying for the salaries. They are paying for the normal day-to-day running. But what is missing from these facilities is really the HIV commodities that allow people to be put on treatment. So with that platform of a HIV trust fund, that would allow the private sector to contribute even more than it's currently contributing. At the moment, it's contributing only 2% to the national response, and we can push that to as high as 10%. Another part of the response that we are also very keen that people get involved with is the issue of prevention of mother-to-child transmission. At the moment, Nigeria carries the burden of babies being born with HIV in the world. On average, every 4 children born with HIV in the world is a Nigerian child. Only 1 out of every 3 pregnant women with HIV are put on antiretrovirals. And for a disease condition that you can actually stop transmission from a mother to a child, in this day and age, when you have countries completely eliminating HIV, is certainly not an acceptable situation for us to be in. The federal government has already launched the fast track, where we're talking about testing up to 3 million pregnant women for HIV and putting 75,000 on average on treatment. But that's still not enough, because we estimate we have about 160,000 pregnant women at any point in time requiring treatment. So there's still a lot of work to do, but for people who really want to contribute to the response, the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, we are around, we are ready to partner with people who can contribute to the response, because remember, those 1 million Nigerians that are currently on treatment are not going to go away for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And those 2 million Nigerians that need to go on treatment really need to go on treatment. Otherwise, we're not going to achieve epidemic control.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. 1 million Nigerians who are HIV positive are on treatment. 2 million are not. What is the fate of these 2 million? How would they have, well, what impact would their not being on treatment have on the fight against HIV/AIDS?
So we estimate 2 million Nigerians require treatment. So out of those 2 million, the majority of them do not even know they are carrying the virus. So the first task really is to find those 2 million, to test them, and then to link them to treatment. So, for instance, I can tell you, based on our plans over the next 1-2 years, what we call the fast track plan, and together with our partners, what we are hoping is in the next 1-2 years we'll put another million, up to 1 million of the 2 million on treatment. And we're doing this partly with our external donors. So the US government, for instance, through their country operational plan for 2017-2018, have already committed to putting about 240,000 Nigerians on treatment. Global Fund have a figure of about 40,000, I believe. And we have been collaborating with the state governments to see if they can put up to 1% of their federal monthly allocation towards HIV. If they do this, it will allow us to put another 500,000 Nigerians on treatment. By the time you reach 2 million, even though you're still only 2/3 of the way, but you're going to achieve a degree of epidemic control. The best epidemic control is if you have 90% of the people who have HIV in a country diagnosed, and 90% of those on treatment. What we call the 90-90-90 targets for UN-AIDS, which is really directed towards eradicating AIDS by 2030. And in Nigeria, we're still very far off, because when we talk about the 90-90-90, in Nigeria, only 34% or so know their diagnosis have been diagnosed and know that they're diagnosed, even though we are doing much better in terms of, out of those 34%, 88% are currently on treatment, and about 81% we believe are virologically suppressed. And going back to your question, how would that help the epidemic? Well, if you are on treatment and you're virologically suppressed, i.e. you don't have the virus in your bloodstream, you're not going to transmit the virus. We have what we call undetectable, means uninfectious, untransmissible. So if you don't have the virus in your bloodstream, you will not transmit the virus either to your loved one, your partner, or to your baby if you're a pregnant mother. And that's one of the most effective ways of bringing down the epidemic. One of the main reasons why the numbers have been coming down worldwide in terms of new infections, including in Nigeria, is partly because of the number of people going on treatment. In South Africa, for instance, they have 4 million people on treatment currently, even though they have a much larger epidemic with about 7 million infected. But Nigeria, we're not very far off either. With 3 million infected, it's still a large number. And if 2 million continue to carry the virus without knowing, then it will be much more difficult to achieve epidemic control, even though we've sort of almost reached the tipping point. But I'm pretty confident that government, as far as we're concerned, at the federal level, we're doing all that we can to make sure that Nigeria is not left behind.